Students who are going to be working in Illustrator from start to finish, you're going to then start with your album cover files for Illustrator by clicking on the download button. As soon as you download the file, you're going to open up the blue folder. You're going to choose whichever mock-up you've chosen. So depending on which of these mock-ups, go ahead and click on that folder. And you're going to start with your record cover. So the record cover is going to be, it's going to include the graphics and it's also going to include the type. So you need to have both of those things in here at once. Couple things about Illustrator. Yes, you're not working in Photoshop and bringing it in, but you have a little bit more prep work before you bring it into here. So what I would do is I would make sure that that mock-up sketch that you have all of your layers labeled. Make sure that everything is labeled. You want to have a good, clear plan of how everything's going to be laid out because you're going to want to organize your layers. Second thing is you want to have that sketch downloaded, ready to bring in if you decide to trace on top of it. And then once you're in here, you need to place that sketch. So we're going to pretend that we're going to start from scratch. So this layer right here is going to be called guides, and we're going to lock those. That's all of these lines, which I'm going to go over in a second. Then we have our sketch, which I will bring in. Then I'm going to have any additional layers that I'm going to use to build my project. So taking all of the layers that you have labeled out onto your sketch paper, start building them inside of here. Now for time purposes, I'm not going to use a sketch. I would highly recommend it though if you are going to be tracing on top of it. You go into your sketch layer to File, Place. Make sure you find that sketch on your computer, and when you bring it in, I want you to bring it all the way to the top left corner and stretch it all the way to the bottom right corner. This line this box right here is your bleed. This is where the edge of the artwork is going to go. This is your line indicating where you would actually be trimming the design. And then we have the inside, what I call safe zone, which is where your text is going to go. That's another part of your layers that you need to consider as well. So let's say that I have my sketch in here. I'm going to lock it, which I then am going to turn off before I turn in my design. Then we have our layers. So let's pretend I have shapes. Maybe I have a line layer. If you are outlining something, your titles of your layers are going to be completely different. And then I might have the title layer for my artist or the album, and then I'll have my artist. Those are the two things that you're going to be adding as type to this design. So I'm going to start in my shapes. I'm going to use my shape tools. This is going to look really simple and totally not designed the way that I'd like it to, but it's just for time purposes. So maybe I'm just going to have some shapes on this layer. You can also make sure to include a background layer if you're going to have a colored background, so make sure that that goes above your sketch layer. So if I'm going to add that, I'm going to add a background. Okay, and then maybe I should add a rectangle. Do not have your background outlined in black. It doesn't transfer well when you go to print it. Unless you're going to make it a really thick black thick line, leave that outline off. In this case, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. And then maybe make these white. Okay. And like I said, this is not how I would want my final design. I'm just doing something simple. I would then build a layer with lines, and then I get to my title. So the title comes from the text that you've already chosen. Hopefully you had an opportunity in your libraries to save the title of your texts. Mine are from last year, so I don't have them saved inside the computer. I originally had used these two for my design, but hopefully you have yours saved. If you don't, you can go back into Adobe Font and you can add families to your Adobe account, and they should hopefully save there. Now, then how do you open them? Well, when you turn on your type tool, you go into your properties, go into the character panel, and then make sure that this cloud with the check is marked off. So I'm just going to come through here, and I'm going to choose this from my first font. I'm going to make it extra large. I am going to have you make the title of the album the center focal point. So this is going to be the biggest font that you choose between the two, because you're going to have this, plus you're going to have the name of the artist. You can choose to add strokes to your fonts. And then you can also add effects. So if you have your font selected, you can come in here and actually add different effects here as well. Okay, so that's the title. And then I spelled it wrong. I always forget that extra E. Make sure you do not misspell the title or the artist name. That is extremely disrespectful. Okay, so I'm going to keep that centered. Lock that and move on to my artist. This font's going to be a little bit different. I'll choose a thinner font, not too thin, not too thick, and it's going to be the name of the artist. This person, Dolly Parton, for my album cover is important, but I want it to be secondary to the title, so I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to arrange it in an aesthetic way to make it look organized. I don't like that. Let's leave that alone. Okay. So double check your spelling both on the title and on the artist. And we're going to go ahead with File, Save As. You're going to save this to your computer. I'm going to save mine to the same spot, so Downloads as an Illustrator file. And then I'm going to export it as a ping. Okay, now the PNG is also found in the same file. Actually, I'm sorry, the record art file is found under the same file. So after I've completed my album cover mockup template, I'm going to move into my record art. And here I am going to fill in this entire square all the way to the edge with my design. So go all the way to the red line. Okay. Once you have designed it, remember keeping your layers organized, everything laid out perfectly. You're going to then save it as an Illustrator file and then export it as a ping, and you'll have both the PNG of the record art as well as the album cover. And those two PNGs are going to be put into this assignment. So I'm going to pretend I'm a student for a second. I'm going to try again, and I'll show you how I would get those. So I had placed mine in my downloads. Notice it's PNG. That's for the record art. And then if I had saved this one as an Illustrator file and then exported it as a ping, I would have this one in there as well. So when you turn in your Illustrator pings, you should have two for each. One for the album cover, one for the record cover. And then go ahead and submit.